Hey guys, I'm here with another budget video, but this time around I'm going to do Commander. Commander is one of my favorite formats, so I thought it would be a good idea to make a video. All the Commander decks I have on Magic Online are basically decks filled with cards I drafted and cards that I could buy for extremely cheap various places. So all my Commander decks are pretty budget, but they're all pretty competitive too and fun to play. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of them. It's just something I'll do occasionally. Um, and today, with this video, thought I would talk about Yasova Dragonclaw, the Yasova Dragonclaw commander deck I have. You're probably familiar with her. She's a pretty recent printing. Yeah, so it's 3 mana for 4/2 trample, as you can see. And at the beginning of combat on every turn, I can play 1 in blue-red hybrid mana to gain control of a target creature an opponent controls with power less than Yasova's until end of turn and tap that creature, and it gains haste until end of turn. So the whole deck's built around her. That's how Commander works. And because she has blue and red in her text box, she's actually, a Tamer Commander, which makes sense because her character is supposed to be the head of the Tamer in the Fate Reforged time period. So our deck basically is built around sort of a Voltron style of pumping up our Yasova Dragonclaw as much as possible so we can steal whatever we want. And not only that, but also having sacrifice outlets for the creatures we steal. So that's basically what this whole deck is, and I'll go through the cards that go with this strategy. All the cards in this pile here, which I will talk about, are all just sort of staple cards or cards that are just good in a commander decks that I put in most commander decks of this color or of multiple colors. And so I'll talk about them eventually, but first we'll talk about the sacrifice outlets we have and the ways we have to pump up our Yasova. And this is actually in the wrong pile, I think. This is a sacrifice outlet. So to pump up Yasova, we have things like Cash Defenses, which is 2 and a green mana to bolster 3. And Yasova will usually be our only creature. We only have 12 creatures. We do have a few other creatures, but she'll usually be the one getting bolstered. We have Snake Umbra, which is nice, not only because it pumps her up, but it also gives her totem armor. So if something would destroy her, just this enchantment's destroyed. And it can also give us more cards to draw. Temur Runemark pumps her up, and she can get trampled, depending on what else we control. Bear Umbra, like Snake Umbra, has totem armor, and so allows her to be protected in a way. And it also pumps her up, and it allows us to swing and untap all, go to our combat, steal a creature, and say we had to tap all our mana to do that. We can then untap all of our lands after we attack with Yasova, if she attacks. Dramoka's Gifts, here for the bolster to pump up Yasova. Madcap Skills pumps her up. It also makes her a little more evasive. Gives her what they're now going to call in Magic Origins Menace, meaning she can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Vow of Lightning pumps her up and gives her first strike. It also has, the added flexibility of I can put it on an opponent's creature that's a real problem and it can't attack me anymore. Vow of Flight is similar, gives her flying instead, and I can use it more flexibly if I have to. And then we have some equipment. Hero's Blade's especially good with a commander that you want to pump up because every time I cast her, this just goes right on her, and she becomes a 7/4 immediately, which obviously can steal most creatures. Champion's Helm, is a commander staple that I would put it in any deck, but I put it in this pile because it's especially good with her because it makes her bigger and hexproof. And then Grafted Wargear is interesting because it's both equipment and a way to kill my opponent's creatures if I want to. I can just put it on to my Yasova to make her big, a 7/4. It also means that if this equipment gets blown up, she dies, but she just goes to the command zone, as you know. But I can also use it to put onto my opponent's creatures and kill them by unequipping it. This is especially useful if I have stolen multiple creatures in one turn, which can happen. We have another pile over here I'll talk about of other ways to steal creatures. We also have Demon Male Halberg, which, again, can make our Yasova bigger, and then we can also use it as a sacrifice outlet because you have to sack a creature to equip it. Then we have Haunted Plate Mail. It's just, a good equipment that's, it's not great, but it's 4 mana for +4/+4. But it can also turn into a creature that can help in a damage race if it has to. It only works if I have no other creatures, so that hopefully won't happen too often. And then over here we have sort of our sacrifice outlets. You know, we steal our opponent's guys with Yasova. Well, I guess first I'll talk about these. These are the other ways we have to steal things. So we can steal our opponent's creatures with Yasova and swing at them with them, you know, if we want to, if they're open. But we also have other ways to steal creatures, like, you know, the basic act of treason. Grab the reins, which really does both things in one. If we have 7 mana, we can steal a creature and fling it at our opponent or one of their creatures to kill it. Mob Rule can steal multiple creatures at once, so that's especially bad for our opponent if we have Grafted War Gear, because we can just kill all of them. Dominus of Fealty is a lot like Yasova. It can gain control of permanents in general, which is pretty great. And it can steal creatures, you know, so I could get 2 creatures a turn if I have Dominus and Yasova in play. Reigns of Power is an interesting card that also would let me steal all of my opponent's creatures. Like, you know, until end of turn, they could steal all of my creatures. But in response, I mean, after I get their creatures, I can just, you know, blow them all up one way or another, which we'll talk about. And we also have Illusory Gains, which can steal a creature. And the way the trigger works, when our opponent plays a new creature, we can then use a sacrifice effect to kill the old one, and the Illusory Gains trigger will still be on the stack and still attached to the new creature, so it works out pretty well. So yeah, now I'll talk about the sacrifice outlets we have in this deck. We have Dracoplasm, who's another guy who can just kill a bunch of creatures at once, or just one. When he enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice any number of creatures, and his power becomes the total power of those creatures and its toughness, their total toughness. So, you know, I steal, you know, a big creature, swing at my opponent with it, play Dracoplasm, and basically make Dracoplasm into that same creature, except it has fire, breathing, and flying. I also have Momentous Fall, so I can steal their creature, and then draw cards equal to that creature's power and gain life equal to its toughness. Feed the Pack is probably one of the better ones, because it's a permanent effect on the battlefield. I can just steal their creatures, and then every turn sacrifice it and get wolf tokens to beat them to death with. Ooze Garden is also a good one that's always there. You can just pay 1 and a green to sacrifice a creature, and that creature becomes an ooze token, has the same power and toughness. Actually, it's just the power. You can only do it as a sorcery, unfortunately. Barrage of Expendables is another permanent effect where we can just steal their creatures and then throw them at them. Scorched Rusalka is basically the same thing, except in creature form. Fiery Conclusion is a big burn spell for 5, where we can use their own creature to burn something else for 5. Sheevan Harvest is really great. It's another permanent effect, and we can use it to also hurt our opponent's mana. Magma is one of the other few creatures we have in our deck, and it can sacrifice things to ping things. Drowned Rusalka can sacrifice things and help us dig through our deck to find things. Sidisi's Faithful, you know, has exploits, so we can exploit their creature and then bounce one of their other creatures. Perilous Research lets us sacrifice one of their creatures and draw 2 cards. Baron Master Wizard lets us sacrifice any permanent and return a creature to its owner's hand. Gurmag Drowner, another guy with exploit. This one lets us look at the top 4 after we sacrifice their creature and put 1 in our hand, the rest in our graveyard. Profaner of the Dead, another exploit guy, and whenever he exploits a creature, you return to their owner's hand all creatures our opponents control with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. So it can be a pretty huge effect. I have Skull Clamp in here, even though it's pretty much a staple, but it's especially heinous if we can start equipping this to things and then sacrificing their creatures and still drawing 2 cards every time. And Life's Legacy is another thing that lets us sack a creature and draw a bunch of cards. So this is sort of the, you know, the core of the deck, the big part of the deck that makes it do the fun Yasova things that it does. And then over here, we just have some more, you know, stapley things like, you know, Tumor Charm. Should probably be in most decks that have these 3 colors just because it's so flexible. It can be removal, it can counter a spell, it can make creatures unable to block. Enoch Survivalist is like a naturalize with legs, and that's important to have in this format. Acidic Slime can blow up all kinds of things. Lightning Bolt's always good. Breath of Daragaz is a big board clearer if we need one. Fiery Fall helps us fix our lands, and it can also be a removal spell late. Chandra Nalar, I mean, Planeswalkers are just good in this format, and this is one of the few cheap ones, so I actually have it. Pyrotechnics is good. You know, you can 4-for-1 people. Sometimes Aftershock is good because it can destroy so many different things. Outpost Siege, you know, just gets you card advantage. Flame Tongue Kavu is just, an amazing card that can remove a dude and then still be a 4/2 out on the field. Hammer of Perforos gives all our guys haste, but can also help us, if a game has stalled by getting us a bunch of golems. Chaos Warp can get rid of any permanent our opponent controls. Brainstorm is just good card draw. Spell Crumple helps us counter things, and it puts them on the bottom of their library. And Magic Online hasn't updated the rules yet, so you can still do this to their commanders. People are still tucking commanders in this format. Magic powers that be haven't decided that the recent ruling that the sort of people who regulate commander informally, Magic hasn't decided to go with those rules. That the recent rule change that says you can't tuck commanders anymore. But we also have Jace in here. Again, a planeswalker. Of course, he's not one of the better ones, but he's fine. And then we have Greaves to protect Yasova and give her haste. Soul Ring to accelerate. Armillary Sphere to help us fix our lands. Felwar Stone to help accelerate. Sphere of the Suns, land fixing, acceleration. Tarka Monument, same as the above. Ingot, also mana fixing, Manalith, and Temur Banner, all the same thing. And then in lands, I have a few non-basics, but not a lot. I don't own a huge number of lands unless I've bought them for constructed decks. But we've got Command Tower, which you always want. Evolving Wilds help us find things. Frontier Bivouac, which has all the colors from our commander identity, and is at Boiler Works to add 2 of the colors. Then Rugged Highlands, which is the red-green Gainland. Shivan Reef, the blue-red Painland. Swiftwater Cliffs, the blue-red Gainland, and Temple of Mystery, the blue-green Scryland, and Terramorphic Expanse. And that's the deck pretty much. It's a lot of fun. It's really fun stealing opponents' creatures and then us gaining advantages out of them, which is the main purpose of this deck. And it's a lot of fun to play. I'll record a few gameplay videos of it as well so you can see it in action. But thanks for watching. Oh, before I say thanks for watching, I wanted to show you how much this deck costs as of today, which is June 20th, 2015. And if you wanted to buy every single card in this deck, it would be just under 11 tickets, $10.90. And there's certain things that you could cut that would make it a lot cheaper. Like if you don't want Outpost Siege, it's a whole ticket gone. Most of the things in here don't cost that much, but a few of them do. Champion's Helm is pretty expensive because everyone wants it for Commander, but you could cut it and cut the cost of the deck. Same with Lightning Greaves. And if you cut those, it's about $5 gone from the deck's cost. Same with Jace. He's not even that good. I just happened to have one, so I put him in. So you could cut him too, and the deck would be something like 6 tickets. So it's a very budget commander deck. Most of my commander decks are. So I'll probably do periodically some more videos of my commander decks just because I enjoy the format and I like sharing the decks I've made. So let me know what you think of the deck, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.